Chapter 19 of Lotus Buds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Alice Jane. Lotus Buds by Amy Wilson CARMICHAEL. Chapter 19. Yosepu. No description of the compound would be complete without mention of Yosepu, friend of the babies. This photograph shows the Indian equivalent of pumps and water pipes. We have neither, so all the water required for a family of about 100 has to be drawn from the well and carried to the kitchens and nurseries. The elder girls, who would otherwise help with the work, according to South Indian custom, are already fully employed with the babies, so at present the men do it all. They also buy the grain and other foodstuffs, look after the cows and vegetable garden, a necessity for those who dwell far from markets, and in all other possible masculine ways are of service to the family. Chief of these men is Yosepu, whose seamed and wrinkled and most expressive face I wish we had photographed, instead of this not very interesting string of solemnities. Yosepu is not like a man, he is more like a dear dog. He has the ways of our dog friends, their patience and fidelity, their gratefulness for pats. He came to us in a wrecked condition, thin and weak and rather queer. He had been beaten by his Hindu brother for becoming a Christian, and it had been too much for him. The first time we saw him, a few minutes after his arrival, he was standing leaning against a post with folded hands and upturned eyes and a general expression of resignation which went to our hearts. We found afterwards he was not feeling resigned so much as hungry, and he was better after food. For a week he slept, ate, and meditated. Sometimes he would hover round us, if such a verb is admissible for his seriousness of gait. He would wait till we noticed him, then sigh and extend his hand. He wanted us to feel his pulse, both pulses. This ceremony always refreshed him, and he would return to his corner of the veranda and meditate till his next meal came. Sometimes, however, more attention was required. He would linger after his pulses were felt, and we knew he was not satisfied. One day a happy thought struck us. The Tamil loves scent. The very babies sniff our hands if we happen to be using unscented soap, and tell each other rapturously what they think about that chop. Scent is the one thing they cannot resist. A tin of sweets on our table may be untouched for days, few babies being wicked enough to venture upon it in our absence. But a bottle of scent is irresistible, and scented chop on our washing stands has a way of growing thin. The baby will emerge from our bathrooms rubbing suspiciously clean hands, and in her innocence will invite us to smell them. Then we know why our chop disappears. So now that Yosepu needed something to lift him over the trials of life, we remembered the gift of a good Scottish friend and tried the effect of eau de cologne. It worked most wonderfully. Yosepu held out his 2 hands, joined close lest a single drop should spill, and then he stood and sniffed. It would have made a perfect advertisement, the big brown man with his hands folded over his nose and an expression of absolute bliss upon every visible feature. Now, when Yosepu is downhearted, we always try eau de cologne. His first move towards being of use was when some of our children had smallpox and were put up in a half-finished room which was being built. It has walls and it has a roof, therefore it is suitable, was Yosepu's opinion, and he offered to nurse the children. One evening we heard a terrible noise. It was like 3 cracked violins gone mad, all playing different tunes at the same time. It was only Yosepu singing hymns to the children. For spiritual instruction is a thing to be desired, and there is nothing so edifying as music. After this he announced his intention of becoming water carrier. Water is a pure thing and a necessity. The young children demand much water if their bodies are to be, here followed scriptural quotations meant in deepest reverence. I will be responsible for the baths of all the babes. And from that time Yosepu has been responsible. Solemnly from dawn to dusk, with breathing spaces for meals and meditation, he stalks across from nurseries to well and from well to nurseries. He is a man of few smiles, but he is the cause of many, and we all feel grateful to Yosepu for his goodness to us. Often, on melancholy days, he comes and comforts us. It was so one anxious day before we went to the hills when we were trying to plan for the safety of our family. We can only take a limited number of converts with us and no babies. The difficulty is then which to take, which to hide, and which to leave in the nurseries. We were in the midst of this perplexity when Yosepu arrived. He stood in silence and then sighed, as his cheerful custom is. We made the usual inquiries as to his health, physical and spiritual. Both soul and body, his invariable order, never body and soul, were well, he said. His pulse did not need to be felt today. No, there was something weightier upon his mind. There are times when it is like extracting a tooth to get a straight answer from Yosepu, for he resents directness in speech. He thinks it barbarous. At last it came. Ayo, ayo! Alas, alas! My sun has set, but who am I that I should complain or assault the decrees of Providence? But, Amma, remember the word of truth. Then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. And he slowly unwound his wisp of a turban, held it in his folded hands, and shook down his lanky jet-black locks with a pathos that was almost sublime. It took time to pierce to the meaning of it. The children were being scattered. The reason must be that we felt the bath-water carrying too much for his powers through the hot weeks. It was not so. He was strong to draw and to bear. The babies should never be deprived of their baths. But today, as he went to the well, he had heard what broke his heart, and he laid his hand upon the injured organ, and sighed with a sigh that assured us his lungs at least were sound. Tingalu is to go away, the apple of my eye, that golden child who smiles upon me and says, "Oh, elder brother, good morning." You are not going to leave her with me. Therefore spake I the word of truth concerning my gray hairs. Then, quoting the text again, he turned and walked away. Once the beloved Tingalu was slightly indisposed. She has not often the privilege of being ill, and so, when the opportunity offers, she does the invalid thoroughly. It would be a pity, Tingalu thinks, to be anything but correct. But Yosepu was much concerned. He appeared in the early morning with his usual cough and sigh. Amma, Tingalu is ill. She will soon be better, Yosepu. She is having medicine. What sort of medicine, Amma? And Yosepu mentioned the kind he thought suitable. That is exactly what she has had. You will see her playing about tomorrow. But no smile is on her face today. I fear for the babe. Tingalu never smiles when ill. Invalids should not smile. Yosepu suggested another medicine to supplement the first, and departed. Next morning he came again, anxious and cast down in countenance. I had to keep him waiting, and when I came out he was standing beside my veranda steps, head on one side, eyes shut, hands folded as if in prayer. Well, Yosepu, what is it? Amma, the light of your eyes revives me. Well, tell me the trouble. All yesterday I saw you not. It was a starless night to me. This is merely the preface. But Yosepu, what is wrong? Tingalu, that golden child with a voice like a bird, she lies on her mat. I am concerned about the babe. Tingalu, turned 4, is as hardy as a gypsy. I fear for her delicate interior. Those ignorant children, the convert nurses would have been pleased if they had heard him, know nothing at all. It may be they will feed her with curry and rice this morning. That would be dangerous. Amma, let her have bread and milk, and I will pay for it." Yosepu came a few days ago with a request for a doll. "Who for?" "For myself." "But are you going to play with it?" Yosepu acknowledged he was, and he wished it to have genuine hair, a pink silk frock, and eyes that would open and shut. We had not anything so elaborate to give him, and he had to be contented with a black china head and painted eyes. But he was pleased, and took it away carefully rolled up in his turban, which serves conveniently for headgear, towel, scarf, and duster. When and where he plays with the doll no one knows, but he assures us he does, and we have mentally reserved the first pink silk with eyes that will open and shut that a benevolent public sends us for Yosepu. The words were hardly written when a shadow fell across the paper, and the unconscious subject of this chapter remarked as I looked up, 1 Corinthians 7:31. "Do you want anything, Yosepu?" "Amma, 1 Corinthians 7:31. "Well, Yosepu, as it is written in that chapter and that verse, the fashion of this world passeth away. Amma, if within the next 2 months a visitor comes to Dohnavur carrying a picture-catching box, I desire that you arrange for the catching of my picture. This, Amma, is my desire." The Western mind is very dense, and for a moment I could not see the connection between the text and the photograph. Yosepu is never impatient. He squatted down beside me, dropped his turban round his neck, held his left foot with his left hand, and emphasized his explanation with his right. "Amma, the wise know that life is uncertain. I am a frail mortal. You, who are as mother and as father to this unworthy worm, would feel an emptiness within you if I were to depart." "But Yosepu, I hope you are not going to depart." This was exactly what Yosepu had anticipated. He smiled, then he sighed. "Amma, did I not say it before? 1 Corinthians 7:31. The fashion of this world passeth away. Therefore I said, let me have my picture caught, so that when I depart you may hang it on your wall and still remember me." Yosepu's latest freak has been to take a holiday. "My internal arrangements are disturbed. Composure of mind will only be obtained by a month's respite from secularities." Yosepu had once announced his intention of offering himself to the National Missionary Society, and we thought he now referred to becoming an ascetic for a month and wandering round the country, begging bowl in hand. For he solemnly declared as he stroked his bony frame, "The Lord will provide." But his intention was a real holiday. He would go and see the brother who had beaten him, and forgive him. We suggested the brother might beat him again. He smiled at our want of faith and went for his holiday. A month was the time agreed upon, but within 3 days he was back. He could not stay away, he explained with a shamefaced air of affection. "Within me pulled the strings of love, pulled, yea, pulled till I returned." Faithful, quaint, and wholly original Yosepu. He calls himself our servant, but we think of him as our friend. End of chapter 19.